Thank you for listening to my reading of Dagon, if indeed you did. If you're just curious about some very basic analysis of it, whether you listened to me read it or read it on your own, then please stay and we can discuss. I intend to do a brief analysis of every story I read or review. Now, where to start with Dagon? In case you didn't listen to my reading, or it's been a while since you read it yourself, the plot is summarized as such. A man is setting down on paper the events that he believes made him mad. Early in World War I, his ship was captured by Germans, but he managed to escape with lots of provisions. However, after drifting aimlessly in the open Pacific, he awoke one day to find himself in the middle of a vast expanse of wet land that he supposes is a portion of the ocean floor that was thrust up beneath him. He sets off to find the ocean, but instead finds a deep ravine that he climbs down. He sees a purposefully carved monolith with freaky fish people on it, and then one of the fish people depicted on it climbs up and begins praying to it or something. He runs away, passes out in a storm, and wakes up in an American hospital. He's haunted by what he saw and becomes a morphine addict to try to escape the nightmares, but it ruins his life, empties his wallet, and doesn't help enough. So after setting down his account, his madness overtakes him and he tosses himself out of a window. The first thing to note is that, while it's canonity, is that a word? I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for, to the so-called Cthulhu mythos is debated, it's at the same time the first story of said mythos to be written, at least in style, tone, themes, and even events. It acts as a prototype for the whole canon, and more directly a prototype of the Call of Cthulhu, arguably Lovecraft's most famous work. So once we eventually get to the Call of Cthulhu, we'll be revisiting this one a bit. Anyone not familiar with the finer details of the story will be pretty shocked when they see the third chapter of Call of Cthulhu. It's practically just an ambitious rewrite. Both are even likened to Polyphemus? I can't really pronounce that one either. The Cyclops that captured Odysseus and his crew in Homer's Odyssey. Okay, going off topic and off script here, but this is my favorite picture of Polyphemus. That's just how I'm going to pronounce it. I think that was painted in 1802 by a lesser-known artist. I forget his name. He had like 4 names. I think he was German. Oh, man, I love it. Back on track. Let's see, where were we? Right. Rewriting older works and reusing ideas wasn't uncommon for Lovecraft. When we come to The Nameless City and The Shunned House, I'll have more to say on that particular subject. But with Dagon being published in 1919, his first submission to a pulp fiction magazine, Dagon was a good candidate for a rewrite later in Lovecraft's life. Though Dagon is considered a prototype for the Cthulhu mythos rather than a solid entry in it, the name Dagon would return in doubtlessly canon works, most notably in Shadow over Innsmouth, where the human partners of the immortal undersea beings, not unlike the ones seen in this story, worship at a church called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. Clearly, Dagon made it into the Lovecraft universe in some form, but in what capacity is debatable. The creature seen in Dagon is not likely the titular being and more of a follower. In fact, in Shadow over Innsmouth, Dagon is named as actually I'm going off script and out of memory again, but as part of a triumvirate. He's called Father Dagon, and then there's Mother Hydra, and then Cthulhu on top of that. It could be suggested that Dagon is a pronounceable human code word for Great Cthulhu himself, as the name is taken from biblical sources, but Shadow over Innsmouth kind of muddles that up. The Lovecraft canon is not entirely watertight. The ancient Philistine legend of Dagon the fish god is no mere imagination on Lovecraft's part, but is in fact taken from real archaeology, a subject which fascinated Lovecraft and one we'll hear more about in the more stories we go through. Dagon is a very ancient god, dating back to Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, worshipped originally in Babylon, Assyria, Akkadian, and was one of the most important gods of the Philistines. He was a god of grains and fish, representing agriculture and fertility respectively, and so was a very well thought of god, important to many cultures of the time. Worshipped for millennia by many different peoples, his role changed and evolved, but in the Old Testament and Hebrew Bible he's stated to be one of, if not the most important god of the Philistines, hence the ancient Philistine legend. And centuries of debate evolved his likeness into that of a merman through many factors and interpretations. Perhaps there will be time someday to dive into those interpretations and delve more into the history of the god Dagon, but the bottom line relating to Lovecraft's short story is that the archaeology, fish interpretation of the god, and Lovecraft's imagination and fear of the ocean mixed together to form a very unnerving and powerful base for many of his stories to come. Now's as good a time as any to discuss certain phrases and references Lovecraft made in the story that maybe didn't last the century. One example I'll try to get out of the way here is Cyclopean. Get used to that one, he uses it a lot. It basically means huge. It goes back to ancient times when huge stone blocks were used for masonry, and the Greeks said such constructs were made by cyclopses. Cyclopses? Again, I'm no scholar. Another dated reference is when Lovecraft mentions Poe and Doré. Hopefully everyone gets the Poe reference, as in Edgar Allan Poe, one of Lovecraft's biggest inspirations. If you don't know who Poe is, then what are they teaching in schools these days? Maybe I'll have to do a video on him too. Gustave Doré, however, is less known. Dead before Lovecraft was born, he was a 19th century French painter, very prolific with hundreds of paintings and sculptures. Here's a couple examples. This one's my favorite. And the angel said unto him, Stop hitting yourself. But he could not stop, for the angel was hitting him with his own hands. Oh, that was great. You might have seen some of these. They're pretty famous. He would do pictures for novels and stories as well, even Poe's work. The stark, occasionally gruesome images of Doré were great inspiration for Lovecraft. It feels like there's more to say, and there is, but much of it will have to wait for other follow-ups. If I do get around to doing full, probably exhausting readings and analysis of Call of Cthulhu, Shadow over Innsmouth, and a few other stories, this one will be referenced again and again, so keep an eye out for that. Let me know what you think. Please leave comments. I'd love to facilitate discussion between fans of Lovecraft's great work. So until I pick what to read next, please like, subscribe if you want more, and keep an eye out. I'll be back with more soon.